Hey, and welcome back, guys, to the next episode. I think we're up to episode 7 of the Big Gay Overalls podcast. Before I kick off today's, firstly, massive thank you to everybody who has messaged, who has commented, who has shared this little podcast, who has reached out with kind words, who's left a review or a rating. Thank you. Like, that means the absolute world to me that my weekly ramblings have struck a chord with people. People find it useful and helpful, and I appreciate you sharing your story with me. So I will then keep sharing my story or perspectives that I have in this whole journey. One of the things that was reached out to me about I've lost count of the amount of times in the last couple of weeks was, would I start a Facebook group for people to connect and talk about topics or talk about things that we talk about in the podcast, or, if there want to be guests or share information. And to be honest, at first I was like, no, I'm just sharing my story. But then I thought about it. But the thing is, I don't really like Facebook. I don't like Facebook groups because usually people who have like a creator, I guess you can say I'm a creator because I've created something, are doing it because they want to harvest clients. So, people who target a niche to create a Facebook group, ultimately they want to flog their stuff to them. That's not my jam. That's not what I'm about. What I'm about is sharing my story and being me and authentic and real. And this has been a really powerful avenue for me to do that, even if nobody listened to it. And also Facebook, it's like, I feel a little bit exposed at times when I join a group, because you don't know who's in there or what, and you've got to join the group first and and it's very hard to vet it. It's very hard to keep out trolls. It's very hard, and things that are connected to your socials, they just keep following you for some reason. You get ads and bots and that. In my other day job, we use a group called Skool, a platform called Skool, to run a business group. And it's quite effective. It's not attached to socials. You don't have to, but you don't have to. That's a cool thing. And it's much easier to vet for people who are coming in for the wrong intent. And it is much easier to organize than a Facebook group. So on a Facebook group, if we want to have a list of, LGBTQI plus businesses or, therapy services or whatever that I know and trust, like, to put that in a Facebook group is a bit of a pain in the butt because you've got to have these pin posts and all this. Whereas in this Skool platform, I can create just a section called resources, and people can go in there and find what they want, and people can reach out. We can add things to that all the time. Easy to add links, and stuff just doesn't get lost. Plus, it does have a feed where people can post, people can comment, people, whatever. So I decided to start the Embracing My Big Gay Overalls community. And I thought that was a good way to name it because, we are embracing. I know I'm embracing my big gay overalls, and anyone who comes along is welcome to. And, mainly the focus of the group, because I can only speak from my experience, is helping women who are coming out late in life and wherever you're at in that journey. And we can all learn and grow and evolve together. And we can share our stories of, love and pride and, all that sort of stuff where people can, and that's what I want the group to be. So in the show notes, there will be a link to join that group. Now, before anyone gets angry at me and whatever, there's a $5 a month fee that is on there to cover the cost of the platform, basically. And I promise you guys that if you do jump in, there's no contracts. You can dip in and out as you like. That's fine. It's about, you'll get plenty of value. I've got resources and things that I created in my other lives, which, I'll just give away to you guys. And there, we're going to be able to host webinars more easily with, Sharon. People have asked her to come back on and maybe talk about couples therapy and things issues that couples face. So all those things we can do in that platform in a more private way, more controlled and moderated and vetted. And, we can give you better quality stuff than Facebook lets a group person do, because otherwise it's Facebook Live and it just turns into a bit of a shitstorm. So that's why I chose Skool. But if you're interested in checking it out, the link will be in the show notes. More than welcome to be part of the tribe. And we're going to figure it out together. We're going to learn and grow and evolve. I'm not sitting there as like, I'm the administrator, you'll do what I say. Like, this is about creating a space where people like me, and hopefully people like you, can be authentic and feel a bit freer than sometimes you can on the socials. Because sometimes it's just a bit, I feel like everything's too connected and too many bots and too many ads and too many things following you and distractions and pings. And you're writing in a group that you think is private, but then you've accidentally put that message and it's actually gone in your timeline. Those boo-boos have happened and can happen. So it's off the platform. It's on Skool. There is an app. It's very easy to use. Come along for the ride. I'm sure it'll be fun. So on to today's topic. Now, if you've sat there through that 6-minute intro, maybe I should have said that at the start. There's some stuff to talk about first, then I'm going to get into today's topic. But today's topic is worth waiting for. So if you're still here, thank you. Well, I think it's worth waiting for. I had a conversation with somebody online, and they'd made the suggestion that, to talk about the process of separating. And clearly I can only talk about this from my side and what my thought processes and what I thought about going into it. I'm not a legal person. This does not constitute legal advice, financial advice, life advice. This is simply things that I thought about. And I see a lot of posts from people who are at that point. They're either still cohabitating with an ex, even though they're essentially over because of financial reasons, and that does have to happen a lot. Or, they're debating about having that conversation, and it's, excuse me, hard and scary and all that stuff. And I totally get that. So I thought if I share my process through that may help someone. I may have done it all ass about face. I don't know. I will preface this by saying I'm incredibly, incredibly lucky and blessed that my ex-husband, like in the entire 17 odd years we were together, we never had an argument. Lisa walking around the house, ranting and raving and going off her tits does not constitute an argument because no one else was participating in said argument. So we never actually had an argument, and that's not his style. He's not a yeller or a ranter or a raver or passive aggressive, none of that. But in saying all of that, when I got to the point of like, I'm going to have this conversation, I still didn't know how he would react. Like, you don't know, someone could be sitting as a powder keg and it's this one thing there, you're going to watch the quiet ones, and he was going to erupt, and, life was just going to turn into this messy war, which I didn't want. Like, I didn't want that. And I had some, I guess, trickiness in that currently my mother, and still does, lives in the house that we owned together at the time. And she still lives there. He hasn't made any moves to put her out. He's, I think for all intents and purposes, it suits him because she takes care of the dog. There's always someone around the house. She does shopping, all that stuff. But I was worried because there was no way in hell was mum coming to live with me. That was not on my bingo card. And I didn't know what I would do. And, there were financial things I had to consider as well because, I was in my own business at the time, in my own business. I ran a CrossFit gym, and it wasn't, lucrative. It was barely profitable. So then I was like, well, if I move out and I still have to pay half the mortgage, and now I have to pay half the mortgage, and where it's different when everything's one bucket, I'm like, well, I can't afford that. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Or if he demanded, a heap of money. We have no children. So for those of you who are navigating this with children, that is an extra layer. That's not my expertise, but I will have a guest on at some point that has had some experience in that navigating, and that can talk through their experience there. But we do co-parent a dog. And, when I guess when we talk about family involved, like you can't explain to a dog what's happening. It's very confusing. Um, so yeah, oh, the dog gets me. But so there's a lot of layers to it that I had to consider and think about. Now, I was really blessed also in that I had somewhere safe to go and, you know, somewhere secure. And like Sharon had a house and she's like, you can just stay here. Even before we, decided that, um, this is going to be a forever thing. Like this is where you can call home. And the plan was when Sharon moved down, I was going to go and stay like every weekend and do the things. But on the day that she moved down, we'd had a lockdown, and it was like I was there for 3 days once she'd come down, and I just decided that was where I wanted to be. And I remember I went back to um, my original home, I guess, for want of a better word, and I spent one night there, and I was like, I just can't do this. So I think it was a couple of days later, I went up to do some washing because we didn't have a washing machine at that point in time because we didn't move it down with Sharon stuff. And probably not ideal timing on my part, but there's never good timing. But and I tend to once I make my mind up, I'm going to do it. And I didn't even consciously make up my mind. That's the ridiculous thing. I did not consciously make up my mind. I just went in and I said, "Oh," he was still like sleeping off night shift. I said, "Oh, listen, I'm going to move out for a little bit. I just need to take time to think. I need to sort myself out." And he's like, "Okay." And that was that. That was the conversation. And he knew I'd been having some therapy and working through some stuff. Like, had never asked about any of that stuff. Like, I'd been upfront, and he knew that, I was working through some childhood trauma and stuff about my father and whatever. So it was like, okay. And I thought it was weird at the time. Like, not once did he or my mother even ask where I was staying, who was I staying with, was I safe? Like, and I was like, okay, which kind of started to reinforce more and more that like this was the decision that was right for me. Like, this was where I needed to be. So it was step one. And, I kept working with my therapist and, clearly talking to Sharon a lot, but working with my therapist going, like, well, I need to tell him at some point, but I didn't, and there always seemed to be not a good time. So that was at the real early start of January, but then like at the start of February would have been the anniversary when we first started going out. So I was like, oh, well, that seems like a shitty human thing to do. And then March is his birthday, and then April, and then there was May, and there's things. In the end, one day completely spontaneous. And I'd started to tell a few people that, hey, I'm gay, in my close circle. And I thought, well, I need to do something because someone's going to say something inadvertently or whatever. So I just need to rip the Band-Aid off. And again, didn't even do it consciously. He came down to the gym one day with the dog for something, and we were just chatting in the office. Like, he's still, involved in things at the gym. He wasn't helping me run it per se, but he'd come down and take photos or help with things that needed doing, so on and so forth. And I said, "Oh, look, there's something I need to tell you." And he goes, "Yep." And I said, I've been going through the therapy. And he's like, "Yep." And I said, so one of the things that's peeled back from that is that I'm in fact gay. That's just how I said it. I said, probably not what you wanted to hear. And because he doesn't say much, like, we communicate great via Messenger, but if you have a sit down conversation with him, he's not very forthcoming. It's like drawing teeth. And it's funny, on the, various times that I'm back in the house for something, it's like Sharon's made the comment about how hard I have to work to keep conversation going in the house. I was like, well, I actually lived like that for dozens of years and didn't even realize. And he just said, okay. And I said, I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what this means, but I just need to tell you because you deserve to be happy. And I'm not the person who's going to make you happy, which is, something I talked through with my counselor an awful lot about the fact that he did deserve someone could be, you know, we had been essentially glorified flatmates for a decade, probably. Oh, not a decade, maybe 7 years, something. Maybe a decade. But he, you know, someone who could be there for him in the way that he needed, and that wasn't gonna be me. Um, and I felt like and he was fine with it, like, took the news, there was no anything. We did message on Messenger later. I was like, checked in because, you know, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. And he's like, oh, I'm sure like we'll have some sticky moments coming up. But, you know, he said, just, you know, you're going to need your support network. So I don't want to interfere with any of that, even though like the people that we had as mutual friends still, you know, would still greet him warmly today because that's what they do. They're just good humans. That's why they're my friends. They didn't pick sides. I never asked anyone to pick sides. I know that there are people he's friends with that have picked sides, but that's okay. That's their journey. But I would expect that. But, you know, I said, well, they want to support you as much as they're supporting me. So, and I was always tried to be as transparent as I could. So we've always, like, some people would look at it and think, fuck, that's a weird relationship. Like, you guys, and I'm sure some of the members at the gym were confused for a while because, like, well, we think she's with her, but she was married to him, but he's still hanging around and doing things and everything seems cool. Like, what the? But, you know, and even one of my best friends said, like, it's fucking weird what you're all doing, but whatever. Have at it with peace. Like, if we could make this amicable and not be at each other's throat, like, that was the ideal outcome for me because, you know, at the end of the day, it's biology. And you can argue the rights and the wrongs of timing of when things started, not, and that's something that I still like don't reflect well on. But at the end of the day, it was me owning my biology. Like, this is essentially how I've been since I can remember. But now I'm actually wanting to live that life instead of putting it away in a box and not box. See what I did there? But I didn't, you know, I still didn't see the need. It doesn't have to be acrimonious. There's always going to be hurt feelings. And I'm sure his feelings, like, were hurt and it wasn't the future that he envisaged. But he's never communicated any of that to me since or during or whatever. And that's, you know, and that's his journey and that stuff he's got to resolve as well. Like, I can't, this is something I've learned on my journey, is like, I can't fix everything for everybody. And that's not my job. I can't make everything okay for everybody because I did that for 46 and a half years and that kind of sucked. Because if I'm busy making sure everyone else is okay, then I'm not. And then that is totally against all the principles of everything I ever taught the members at the gym, which was like, you got to take care of yourself first before helping other people. And because that hadn't really served me well the previous, you know, I'd survived in life, but I hadn't really thrived. So we just kept going as was. Like, I'd moved out, you know, when it was appropriate. I said that Sharon and I had started dating, and he goes, yeah, I'm not surprised because we did everything together anyway. And God knows if two women do everything together, they must be together. But Sharon had come to the house. She was, at the first time, she was like, oh, I don't know that I'll ever go to the house. And I'm like, cool, would never expect you to. And then one day the dog got sick and Mum rang me. And Sharon was like literally 10 minutes from the house. I had to come from the gym. So she just, let's go see what's wrong with the dog. And we took the dog to the vet. And that was the first time she actually met Sheridan, was when we were sitting in this very small vet room waiting for the vet to come and look at Charlie. And Sheridan came in. So that was kind of that. But he's always been very, like, he's not an asshole and he's not rude. And he's always been very, he'll have a conversation, usually about the dog, because that's always good. Because if I want him to talk about anything, talk about the dog. Because that's, you know, his thing. And like, we've had Christmas Eve, traditionally, we will go over and have Christmas with a meal with like mum and Sheridan, and I still get him presents from the animals because that's what I've done. And we just, work it out because mum's still in the house. I've still got a key to the house. And like mum will pull bullshit. Like when I go there and say, I just need to grab this. And she's like, oh, you better ask permission first, or that'll be $30. And I like, yeah, I'll take it off the rent. You're not getting charged. Or have you asked Sheridan? I went, I don't need to ask Sheridan. 9 times out of 10, I've probably told him about something I was going to grab because it's respectful and it's courteous, but just don't make a big thing of it. It's just don't. So, and I said to mum when I first moved, I said, don't bring it up with Sheridan. He doesn't need you on his case to ask questions. Just leave it. Just leave it. So to my knowledge, they haven't really discussed anything, which is the way he likes it. And she just potters about her business. So we went along as we were, and then I had proposed to Sharon. Yay, exciting. And it's like, well, I need to get divorced now. Otherwise I can't get married. It's a bit awkies. And again, I proposed to Sharon on the 1st of March when we signed the contract for the house we were purchasing. So it was all exciting. And then I spoke to him, I think, again in the June. So this is a year after I told him I was gay. To start the divorce, to help with the settlement, because I really had no money, and if we could square that away, then that would be helpful. So we kind of started thinking down that path, and it was quite a long path because not that we were arguing, but it was like hard to pin him down to, like I'd worked out a spreadsheet with everything that I'd owed since I'd moved out, even like half the repayments, half the insurance, because he was still paying all that and he never asked me for a cent of that. And we had like my car payment, which he'd still been paying, all of these things. And I said, does that look fair? Originally, I'd said, look, I'm not even chasing anything from the house. Like if you decide that, no, it's all yours, then that's cool. If that makes life easier for everyone, I will back out of it. But he was like, well, no. And so we went through a process through a group called Simple Separations. So it's not court, but they help you with the property settlement because he had to refinance to pay me out. And they do the necessary paperwork than trying to do it yourself. But I had lodged the divorce online. He paid for half of it. And that went through. That got finalised the 17th of December, 2022. And we got married in the April. So tick that box. And like he knew we were engaged at some point. And then before we bought this house is, getting that financial settlement through, because once you're divorced, and I said to him, well, now the divorce has gone through, we've got 12 months to sort this, so we should start. And then I went over with a spreadsheet, because I love a spreadsheet, to go through the stuff. And I thought he had some issue with the numbers, but it turns out he didn't. I don't know why he said he did, but he didn't. That we needed to agree on things, which I ran him through it, and he's like, yeah, that's fine. So anyway, but we still have a joint bank account where his finances go in, and I still, pay his credit card at the end of every month, transfer his pay over. I take money out for mum to cover the fortnight she does the shopping and all the rest of it, and that's fine. Or if he needs his work lotto or it's something for his photo club, he'll send me a message saying, hey, can you transfer this over? Great. At some point we will, get me off that account. It's, but for now, it works for him, works for me, like still trust me because, I'm not going to rip him off. Lots probably would, but that's not my jam either. But again, we're just working together. Like if something comes up with the dog and he can't be there, then I'll go there and do it. Or, I make an effort to go in a couple of times a week and hang out with the dog and play with the dog, particularly when I know he's on long shifts. Or, if he's dropping his car down for a service, then I can go pick him up and take him back home and so on and so forth. And he's done the same for me. Like we're just being adults. And asterisks, I understand, and I'm not being not empathetic to everybody else that goes through this process, I know how incredibly blessed I am that this has been smoother than I feared. Like, I really thought the world was going to turn upside down. He was going to go ballistic. Everyone was going to hate me. I'd be out in the street with my mother and a whole heap of things. And like he's indicated at some point, probably he does want his own space in the house. And when he's ready for that, we'll cross that bridge. And I'm prepared to move mum into a facility because she has early onset dementia. So that's going to be her best option. But until she needs to do that, he doesn't seem to be, or she's dangerous to be at home. He's not really in a rush. It hasn't really been brought up again. So yeah, it's like I'm always, and Sharon and I were talking about it before I said, well, this is what I'm going to talk about this week on the podcast. Like talk about that I'm always mindful of, is this going to offend him? And it's really funny. On the weekend, we went to a local races, and he was coming up with his photography club, and he sent me a message because we message all the time about the dog, just about, I find out what shifts he's on for the week. Like pretty much life hasn't changed in that regard, except that we're no longer married and we don't, cohabitate or anything like that. But, we talk as much as we ever did. And Sharon's good with that, and she can grab my phone at any time and read the messages. And I usually tell her, oh, Sharon just messaged me this or whatever, or sending memes or whatever it is. Anyway, he said, just so it's not on the spot awkward, how would you prefer to be introduced if people come up to us while we're talking on Sunday? Because he was going to show me some photography stuff. And I said, well, we could start by saying just we're friends, because at the very least, that's what we are. I said, or you could describe me as, my bitch lesbian ex-wife. Up to you, whatever you decide. And he replied, we'll go with friends then, shall we? I said, there you go, good call. And that's just the sense of humor that we share. But the fact that he would have the respect to ask that and go, well, what do you want to be called like? And I said, well, I don't know that anyone needs a laundry list of our life, but if they do ask, just we're friends, because essentially that's what we are. That's how I describe him. So yeah, and that's what we do. Like, it's just been a process of, because I knew him so well and I know how he works, is addressing things in a way that I know that work for him to process, and about being as transparent as I could, but without being disrespectful. So like, for example, when Sharon and I go to the house, we're not all over each other, because I think that that's not cool. And that's just not who we are anyway. But, we don't need big PDAs or rocking in and holding hands or anything like that, because that's not what we're about. And we're secure enough in our relationship that we don't have to do that. We don't have to do the big demonstration. But it's respectful for him too. I mean, that's his home. That's his house. And he very graciously, I can still walk in, use the bathroom. 90% of my stuff is still there. Like, I've got a whole heap of clothes the other week. Again, there's a lot of stuff I'm not really interested in. Like, it's, a lot of books and stuff, but it's got to be cleaned out. But he's not, push that. And I didn't want to go in on the first week of being there or not being there, and just go in and grab. So I'll have and put yellow dots on everything. I'll have 50% of this. It's not about stuff. And if it meant that I had to walk away with the clothes on my back, then I would have done that. So those of you who are long-time listeners, I did my second or third episode was about, the first relationship I had, which was about 2010. And, I could, from that point onwards, I could never see myself at a point where I would be brave enough to leave. Like, I could not. Even though I'd sort of thought about it, and I'd sort of almost done it by living in Sydney for 18 months, but that was still a safe option. Like, I had that. But I could never honestly see a point when I would be in a position to support myself and brave enough to go and upend my life, because I was so worried about this giant, nuclear bomb that was about to go off in my life. And I avoided it. But when I had such a compelling reason, in that, I had Sharon and I knew that there was no other option than for me to rip this big old festy Band-Aid off so I could live the life that I could see so clearly. And that be in a space where the first time since I was born, I felt safe and secure and accepted and loved like I'd never felt before. Like I was compelled, like there was no option, there was no way I was not doing this. And I didn't know how. And, I had endless calls with my therapist every week. We'd talk about the same thing. How am I going to do this? What if all the scenarios and none of them came to light. None. All of the things that I've been worried about and anxious about had not come to light or come to bear, which was great for me because, that made everything easier and I feel like I can manage the two aspects of my life. But, yeah, there was so much power in what I felt that I had to do, and I had the right environment to do it. It made it a lot easier. So when I came home from work that morning and I said, "Hey, honey, so I just told Sharon I was gay." Sharon was blown away because she wasn't expecting it, and I didn't know it was going to come out that day. But I knew that I could come home and process that. And I did feel bad that he had no one to process that. And, I knew he wasn't going to reach out to a therapist, but I felt like, I was causing a problem. And, then I had to work through that part of it with me that, I'm not responsible for how he received that or how he then dealt with that afterwards. Like I could just own my truth. And I didn't do it in a way to be hurtful and go, "Yeah, you turned me gay," or whatever. Like some people can be manipulative like that, but that wasn't the way that I did. I tried to do it as directly and transparently. And I tried to be that all the way through the process. And usually the easiest way to do that with him was Messenger. I thought about inviting him to a call with my therapist. We could do it in that environment to make sure that everyone was going to be okay. But again, that was my space I had with her. And I was like, well, then that kind of fucks that right on up. So there was all these things that I had to work through. And I had to be, clearly I was ready within myself and just something came over me. I remember it very clearly. It was about 9:30, maybe 10 o'clock on the 1st of June. So that's when I officially thought, well, okay, now Sheridan knows I can be gay, openly gay, rather than, being conscious of who might have seen me where and, and even, I knew that he hadn't broadcast our split to a lot of people or the reasons for it. And we were going to Pride Fest, which is in Moreton Bay, which is in a council area where we were living, big one-day Pride Festival. And I said to him, "Oh, just a heads up, we're going to Pride Fest, just in case, like I turn up on the news or someone happens to see me and asks you something about it." And he's like, "Yep, rightio, no drama." The same as I think in 2021, 2020, I lose since the pandemic. I lose years, but late 2021, we were going to the big Pride March in Brisbane in September and the Pride Fair Day. And I think that was the first big conversation we had about it. And then even when we're getting married, I'd sort of talked in general terms about, I'll be away for a few days. We've got this big event, da, da, da. And then he sort of said to me, "Is this big event involving, getting married or whatever?" I went, "Yeah." And he's fine with it. It was good. He goes, "Oh, well, I hope you have good weather." And unlike my mother, who to this day has not asked a single thing about our wedding day, not a thing, he at least had the good grace when I got back that hoped everything went well with my event. So he's always been gracious. And at times I'm like, it's more gracious than I deserve. But then that's when I need to show myself grace and go back to that lesson that it's not for me to fix everyone or make everyone else's journey better, because I can't. And I can't even do that with Sharon. Like, when I want to make things easier or better for her, I like I want to, but it's not my responsibility either. It's my responsibility to be a good human. Perimenopause, hormones, just this is the shit they don't tell you about when you're 12. They only tell you about the first bit. They don't tell you about when you're approaching 50 with a bullet, let me tell you. But anywho, it's been a roller coaster this week. But like, I can want the best for her and I can want things to be better and I can help her, but it's not my responsibility to fix everything. And I can't, fix the way that people process information. If I've done my bit and delivered it like a good human and not been a dickhead about it, then that's all I can do. And then I can be there. And I've always said to him, if you have questions or you want to talk, like, just reach out and I'll be honest with you. And I've always said that. And we've had that. If something I've done has offended you, so, I created, this second Facebook account. And I think I talked about one other episode when I posted something to my private Instagram and it wound up on my other account, which used to be my old profile, which I still share. Like, we're friends, we have mutual friends. Most of them don't know anything and they're not in my circle, so they probably don't need to. But then that appeared then. But I was more mortified because I didn't want him to think I was throwing things in his face and being disrespectful. So I guess, like, for my navigating through the various stages of this, is that the one thing that's always guided me was the need to be respectful. First of all, it was trying to take care of everybody else. But then once I stopped doing that, it was about being respectful and that it's okay to honor the relationship that you had. Like, at the end of the day, we're very good friends. Like, I want him to be happy. I want him to have a successful life. I want things to be good for him. And he wants the same for me. So it's about navigating that with respect and appreciating, like, yes, mum still lives there. And yes, we have, some shared sort of interests that cross over and whatever. But it's understanding that and that foundation of where we've come from and the life experiences. Like, you just can't, like, his mother has recently been unwell. So, I would check in, how's your mum? How's your aunt? How's your thing? And I knew he was doing a lot of back and forth to the country town where she lived or lives. And we went up there one day to help him, like, sort out her house a little bit. So it was a bit nice when she got home. Like, Sharon came up with me, like, no big deal, like, because it's the right thing to do. He still has mum living with him. And whilst he doesn't have to ongoing care for her, like, it's still a thing. So, that's how we show respect and we do things that matter. And like I said, we're still co-parenting the dog. I pay the dog's health insurance. Dog has health insurance, I don't, but, because we did have a Roddy before that cost us, I don't know, 10,000 in various treatments. I'm like, next dog, we're getting pet insurance, so we at least get 80% of that back because we learned that lesson. This dog's been faultless, hasn't missed a beat, so it's probably cost us more in pet insurance than we've had to pay out. But, I digress. We co-parent the dog. We still talk about the dog and issues, and I've taken the dog that Sharon and I share, Dottie. We go down, she take her down there. They play together. He's a sucker for animals. Like, I think he actually connects better with animals than people, and he loves it. And he'll probably come out here at some point and drop Charlie off, and the dogs will have a play while he goes out and takes photos and stuff for the day. But we do it with respect, and we try and balance everything and just try and be good humans. And that's the way that Sharon and I have tried to operate. And I think so far, yay us, we've managed to navigate it pretty successfully. We've done a property settlement. We've done, the actual divorce. I've got remarried, and there hasn't been any moments where I felt like he's got the shits about something or I've got the shits on something. Like, and if I feel like he might be shitty about something, I'll say, are you not happy about that or whatever? And just send a message. That's the way to get an answer. So I'm not sure what anyone else got out of this little chat today, but hopefully for those of you who are thinking about it or maybe just started it, understand that it can be good. It doesn't, everything that you're afraid of might not necessarily come true. That's with an asterisk. I do not know everyone's personal situation. I don't know the relationships. But I have seen other relationships like mine that have, separated and split more than amicably. And that people have even managed to live together for ages afterwards and lead separate lives, but figure it out. And I think it comes down to, I was very proactive in working with my therapist. It helps I live with a counselor, but to understand the big emotions and the big feelings and not necessarily react to things, but to respond and take that pause and understand that I'm not going to reply straight away. It's just taking a pause. And then I'll get back to you with some calm and logic and find the way that communicates, find a way to communicate that works for both of you. Like I know for him, messages are gold. Like he will send me a giant big message with these thoughts and feelings that in 17 years of marriage, he's never expressed those thoughts and feelings. So that was a winner. And doing it at times, that they're going to be more receptive and trying to, be honest and be transparent, but be respectful. And I think that's all we can do is try and be good humans. But again, if you've got complexities like kids and properties and finances, like you need to get the right advice. I got some initial advice from a friend who was a solicitor. And that sort of set me on the track of what kind of needed to happen to the house and all the rest of it. So, definitely get some advice, get a therapist, get a counselor, have someone removed from the situation. Because there were some things I was like, well, it's not fair for me to talk to Sharon about this, even though it was. But I felt like I was putting her talking about that situation when this was the situation we were in. Find someone who could be one step removed from the situation, look at it objectively and ask you the right questions to help you make your right decisions and to move forward. There's going to be confusion. There's going to be, you might have a partner who is, or soon to be ex-partner who is more vocal and will talk and communicate more. And then that's a different way to deal with it. But you just have to find a way that works for both and being, respectful and I don't know, I've probably said it too many times, just be a good human. Like if we can find ways to be a good human. All right, that was a bit to get through today, slightly longer episode. So hope you stuck with me. Come on to the Skool group if you want to chat more. Like let's chat there. Otherwise, you can find me on Big Gay Overalls podcast on Threads and Instagram. I'm not on the Facebooks. You can find me. I am personally on the Facebooks, but I don't have a presence there as Big Gay Overalls. Embracing My Big Gay Overalls is a Skool group. Link in the show notes. I would love to see you there. Love to continue the conversation. Leave a comment, leave a review. Thank you so much for following along. Thank you for listening to each episode. I'm blown away about the people who have reached back out to me, and I love having those conversations and looking to get some people on as guests. And I'm also looking to tell more of the story. So if there's something that you want me to talk about from my experience, I'm happy to. Because, when you're late in life, you've had experiences and that colors your things. And I'm just taking baby steps in this thing and trying to figure out who's the best version of Lisa. And I truly believe this version, the 2.0, the Rainbow Lisa, which I got some feedback someone thought was great, is the best version. And I think, I've living the best life that I could right now and being the best me. So you guys are kind of getting me at a good point, which is great. But I love hearing your stories. I love to hear what resonates. Maybe something didn't. Maybe you think, I've got my head up my ass and I'm just making shit up. That's cool too. But reach out. Otherwise, I'll see you in the Skool group or Instagram or on one of these platforms. You can leave a comment. All right, guys, take it easy. Be good to each other. Be good humans, and we'll talk next time.